Welcome to the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowden, where we unpack the strategies and solutions that make localization fast, scalable, and efficient. I'm your host, Stefan Huyghe. Good morning from beautiful, sunny Texas early in the morning here. I'm here with Elena Sadchikova and Robbin van Schagen, straight from Europe. They are joining me for the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowden, and Elena is team lead localization and UX for the writing team at Semrush, and Robbin is a localization consultant that has worked with Semrush closely in the past, and we're going to be talking about building agile localization for SaaS platforms this morning. Guys, why don't you introduce yourself real quick in a much better way and give us a little bit more detail so we understand what your background is. Elena, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Elena and I come from linguistic background, worked as an interpreter and a translator for quite some time. Then, as many, shifted to project management roles, and now for quite some time already, I've been leading a team of brilliant professionals, localization project managers, and UX writers at Semrush, and I'm proud to be their team lead.
Awesome. Robbin.
All right. I'm Robbin. Like Elena, I started out originally as a translator. I, like many, also transitioned then after into a project management role. Up until a month ago, I was Elena's colleague. I worked at Semrush's localization team for 5 years. Took a step back, got married last week, and now that I'm back, I'm working as
Sounds like you have your priorities straight, or at least they're managed so you keep them straight.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and these days I work as an independent localization consultant. So I help companies set up localization processes, make sure their localization is done well and
all
correctly.
Right. Well, let's put your feet to the fire right away and talk a little bit about how you manage continuous localization across multiple products, updates, and teams. Semrush, I believe, has grown from one product to 55 plus. How does the localization process work at Semrush?
So every product has a cross-functional product team behind it. So 55 plus products mean 55 plus product teams to align with and to communicate with. So it takes a lot of communication, alignment, and agreement to do. And the Semrush development never stops. So we ship releases weekly and updates often. So we introduced continuous localization workflows, of course. It's where when source content is automatically pushed to our translation management system whenever it's updated or created in the source code. So and each product team has a designated localization point of contact, someone from localization team, and they ensure that priorities, deadlines are clear, and terminology is consistent across all tools. So that's how we roll. That's how we do. And we try to build scalable processes, shared glossaries, shared translation memories. Unfortunately, there could be technical fragmentation. So different teams could use different content formats, different stacks. So we had to align with all of them to unify shared localization workflow for each one of them. And I think there's still Sorry?
That's a lot of products to be a lot of plates to keep up in the air at the same time. I interview companies that have 2 or 3, and you have 55 plus. How do you balance speed and quality working with frequent updates for that amount of products?
So it depends on the situation, of course. For fast, like quick fixes, maybe like UI components, button or tooltip tweaks, we can use and prioritize speed and clarity, and we just use trusted translators and linguists who know product deeply. We prioritize speed. But for major releases, for new features or entirely new tools from scratch, I think we, of course, prioritize quality, and we do several cycles of reviews and QAs and submit bug reports. So depends on the situation.
Yeah, and you already alluded to the fact that you use a number of trusted translators. Is there any automation that's taken place in your process as well? How do you decide when to automate versus when to rely on human translators?
Well, I think we have pretty straightforward approach towards that. We classified content by impact and visibility. So for high impact, high visibility content, we use human translation and human proofreading and several cycles, QA cycles. And for high impact, low visibility, or low impact, high visibility, we use machine translation plus human proofreading. And for low impact, low visibility, it is automated translation with spot checks.
Yeah. Perhaps I could add a little bit
go
to
ahead,
that
Robin.
as well, because in my work, I focused a lot on marketing localization. And even though I think machine translation, AI has come a long way, it still struggles with things like humor, with context, with culturally appropriate translations, which for marketing context are extremely important. Because if your local marketing doesn't resonate with the local audience that you're trying to reach, you might as well not do any localization at all. So in that sense, my preferred approach has always been a very classical one, where we do human translation and then human proofreading. And then depending on the type of content or the type of campaign, we could even involve a third person to do like independent QA and then cycle back to the translators again.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the tech stack, because that's an aspect of localization that's becoming ever more important and not easy to figure out at times. So let's talk about that for a second. What technologies in particular have been the most important for your localization process?
So for us, I think it was 2 years ago where we switched from Crowdin to the Crowdin Enterprise product, just because the localization needs were such that, we wanted to use workflows with automated tag insertion, depending on like how high the fuzzy match would be, just to speed up, to be able to scale up, and to also bring it together. Because with sort of the basic Crowdin product, we worked in different instances, so we had to manually sync glossaries back and forth, make sure that our translations were using the same style, that we leverage our existing translations correctly. Bringing that all together in Crowdin Enterprise was, I think, for both of our teams, a big time saver. In addition to that, what I really liked about the program was the ways that it would integrate with other products. So let's say you want to, or you design your assets in Figma, you're able to just use an integration together with Crowdin Enterprise. So you don't have to send translations to your designers anymore, who then manually insert the translations. And because, the more people you involve in the process and the more steps you involve, the more room for error you create. So by using integrations where we could, so I'm talking about things like Figma, but also Marketo. There's also, your basic Google Drive integration. All of these help save time and increase productivity. As corny and rehashed as it sounds, it is true. Like, because with every automation, you reduce manual work, and that frees up time for you to focus on things that actually matter and deliver results.
What are some of those key integrations? Maybe we can talk about that real quick, because Crowden prides itself on having over 600 integration at this point. I think so. There's a lot of possibilities, and I've interviewed quite a few people over the past period, and I see different integrations being popular. So I'm interested in how your day-to-day activity, what it looks like using CAD tools and TMS solutions and integrations. Who can tell me something more about that?
Yeah, I'm actually with Robbin on this, that Crowden Enterprise is great for having so many integrations. And apart from the ones that Robbin has already mentioned, Figma plugin, Marketo, Google Drive integration, also use GitHub integration, GitLab integration, Slack integration, of course. And there is a bunch of integrations via Zapier that you can use for different track project management tools like Linear. And yeah, that's all we are using on a daily basis. And thanks to these, our processes have been automated and optimized for quite some time. And yeah.
I think another very useful one is that, you can integrate your own systems with enterprise. So, so when you're using proprietary systems, it can be difficult, right, to connect them with other tools, and especially sort of tools that have a lot of users. So in this case, with Crowden Enterprise, that was fairly simple. And also when we back then did the migration from Crowden to Crowden Enterprise, it was a matter of clicking 2 buttons and making sure that your seats are assigned correctly. And yeah, that was it. It was super simple. And I think in terms of productivity, the capabilities of the program, they were exactly what we needed. And even now, like also working with other companies, I find most don't even use like a fraction of what the program is really capable of. So
that's good to hear. We've managed to get through almost half of the podcast without mentioning the word AI, but here it comes, because sooner or later it has to be coming our way. How has AI changed your workflows, and what are the implementations that you're leaning on when it comes to AI nowadays?
Yeah, so I briefly mentioned it already that we use AI, depending on the context, and Elena talked about impact as well. I think in the beginning, when I just joined Semrush, we used a very classical approach. So translation plus proofreading, and then QA every once in a while. I still think that this method is very valid, especially when you have that sort of very culturally significant localization work that you're doing. But when it comes to, I would say, more static content, so if you look at like KB articles, for example, you have to make sure that your glossaries are up to date, but then you can use AI to create the translation and create, for example, a KB like relatively quickly and relatively correctly. So I would still say that human proofreading now is an important part of this. But I think if you look at like 5-10 years into the future, large language models, they will become so good that you don't really need to have generalist translators anymore. So you're gonna have to be working with very specialized translators, for example, highly skilled in marketing translation, to do these let's say culturally significant localizations for you. But I think the rest is going to be mostly done by AI.
Yeah. How do you evaluate whether the AI output is of the right standard? What are your QA procedures when you're dealing with automated translation today?
So what I did was I ran a big test comparing different MT engines and also like Crowden's own prompt engineering feature. So, and then we measured the total editing distance or editing rate. And we actually saw that there weren't too big differences between the different MT engines. And this could, of course, be due to the sample that we used. But overall, the editing rate was something like, I think, 15%. It depends a little bit on the language and which editor is working on it. But, you define certain quality metrics where you say, okay, if a translation has a maximum edit rate of, let's say, 10%, it's considered good enough. And then if you want to, or you get, for example, feedback from your users that the translation contains mistakes, well, then you can review it. But, if you have to balance speed with cost as well, at scale, you can't review everything if you want to get it out there.
That I didn't really get a good grasp. I might have not asked you yet, but of the spectrum of your languages, do you see any differences in AI performance with the different languages that you handle?
I'm focusing mostly on European languages. I think, Elena, you can talk for Asian languages, but for European languages, I think it's fairly close. Spanish is usually pretty good because, of course, the data set for LLMs is very large. French, Italian, German is a little bit below that. And then when you look at the smaller languages, so Dutch, for example, so my native language, is usually there's more room for improvement. So I would say for the big European languages, there isn't that much difference anymore between the different MT engines. And also, if you set up your editor in Crowding with different MT providers, you usually see that the MT suggestions, they're all identical. And sometimes one will pull formal and the other one will pull informal. But yeah, overall, I think the differences aren't that big anymore.
Elena, you're a Chinese speaker, I believe, too. So I have tremendous respect for that. That's not that evident. Chapeau to you. So how is that different with Asian languages, maybe?
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, the output was not of high quality, and we couldn't use any of that for Asian languages. It includes Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, etc. But recently, we've started noticing that it has become better, like considerably better. It still needs human in the loop. It still needs human proofreading, but it has become better.
Yeah. And you speak Chinese. I've always wanted to know this. I'm just going to go off script and ask you this real quick because you're the right person to ask. When you speak Chinese, and I assume you know how to write some simplified as well, do you recognize other characters in other Asian languages? Are there characters that are close, or is the writing system from, say, Chinese to Korean to Japanese, are they completely different?
Yeah, I can recognize some symbols in Japanese because Japanese has like 3 writing systems, and one of them is like kanji, which is basically Chinese characters. So yeah, I can use some of my Chinese knowledge to understand a little bit of Japanese.
All right, I've always wanted to clear that up, and I've never really had a conversation with somebody that knew it. So I just thought of that. What trends do you both see coming down the pike with AI-driven localization? Are there things that you think this is the way it's going to go, and it'll be different in the next couple of years? Do you have any predictions?
I think on the project management side, it's going to be much more important that you know how to engineer prompts correctly. So you need to be able to get the output that you want from a large language model, more so than sending a translation out to one translator and making sure that the proofreader does their job and everything's ready on time. Setting up your prompt correctly and then doing some QA afterwards. I think as the quality of AI translations increases with time, just because they get more and more training data in there, that sort of need for generalist translations or translators is going to disappear, which is not ideal for me because I just signed a mortgage. So no, so jokes aside, understanding the prompts, understanding how LLMs work with language, and understanding how you can pull that desired quality level using a specific prompt, I think is going to be a key skill that you need to have if you work in localization.
I agree. Elena, do you have anything to add to that?
No, actually, I agree with Robbin. I can actually add that the one concern that I have regarding AI-driven localization is that good enough quality will become the standard in the future. And this is like the biggest concern for me. It's good enough. It's not good enough. For some of us.
Yeah, it's almost like people are becoming more forgiven because they realize that what they're reading might have been put out by a machine, and so that makes it more forgivable. Does that make sense? It's weird how the human psyche works that way. Let's talk. Yeah, go ahead, Robbin, if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I also wanted to add a little bit about expectations management, right? Because what you see from a lot of like leadership is that they think AI is a magical answer for everything, and it goes quite a ways in localization, but certainly it's not. It's at the level where it's often good enough, but that doesn't mean that it's good localization. So this is also a concern that I have, but for in a corporate context, localization is often a cost driver and not really a revenue driver. So in that sense, it's difficult to convince people of the need for good localization. And I think very often no localization could be better than bad localization, because when you hear or you can damage your products, or for example your game or your series with bad subtitles. And this is one of my concerns. But very often, as a professional in localization, you're screaming into the void because it's something that you care about and you care about deeply, but some people don't. And it's your job then as a PM to try to convince them that localization, it's not just a cost, it can also bring substantial revenue if you do it well.
Yeah. If there were any features that you could implement that you that are on your wish list that are not available right now, is there anything that you could think of that would be really nice to have in your process that's not available right now?
If I'm looking at Crowd in Enterprise, what I would like is a very simple drag and drop feature. So I can get the URL to a Google document and then like sync it to Crowdin, and it will just pop out translations to 5 different languages. Right now, you still have to set up the integration. It's not too complicated, but especially when you want to give teams more control over how they do localization on their own, having this sort of very easy drag and drop is something that I think would make localization very quick, very efficient, without having the need to teach someone in depth how an integration is set up and how workflows work and how you assign translators, proofreaders, etc. That's something I would like to see. Yeah.
It sounds like what you're describing is more like a visual way of connecting things than maybe a way in which you actually actively have to tell the thing what to do. It knows it by itself. Elena, do you have any features in that sense that you would like to have?
Yeah, I would wish for more sophisticated and detailed reporting, and maybe integration with some data visualization tools like Tableau or something like that. So, because it's not a secret that higher management and leadership, they speak numbers, and to talk to them, to convince them, you usually need numbers. So yeah, reporting is the key.
Let's talk a little bit about how you manage your global localization team with that many products and that much activity. I assume it's a sizable undertaking. What's your leadership philosophy as a localization lead? What tips can you give the localization leads of the world?
I very much work based on trust. So when I have a team of freelancers that I work with for localizations, I trust them to do their job and I trust them to do it well. But I think you know the saying, like, trust but verify. So I still run QAs. I still do involve external editors to have a look on their work. And that's not because I don't think they'll do a bad job, but I think it's important to be aware of how your team performs and, still giving them the freedom to work as they see fit. I think a lot of translators are very free people in that sense. They like to work where they want to, at times that fit them. And I'm totally okay with that. I really care about sort of the end result and how you get to that end result. I trust you to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Elena, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would also encourage autonomy and ownership for linguists and project managers, of course. And I would encourage open communication and a space for experimenting. And through that, personal growth and team growth as a whole.
Yeah. It's not always very easy to make a large team play nicely in the sandbox together. How do you promote collaboration amongst teams that are distributed all over the world?
I think here it's about having shared communication channels, and I'm not a big fan of meetings. I try to avoid them whenever I can send an email. Yeah. So, but like tools like Slack, for example, are perfect for this. We have shared threads, and everyone's in the same channel, and you can reach people quickly. And simultaneously, I think also when you are looking at language specific communication or like process communication, what I always found very useful is the sort of chat function in Crowdin. So when you're in the editor and I don't know, maybe a string doesn't get pulled correctly and it's broken up, or without the right context, it could mean different things. Just being able to ping your PM or to ask other translators like, hey, how did you do this or that? It's very useful. And what I found in my work as well is that translators are often able to solve problems by themselves because one of them will know, like, hey, if you go to this and this web page, then it's sort of that's what you're working on. And when they post that in the chat and the other translators see that, it doesn't even need the PM to step in anymore to put everyone on the right path. So for me, that's always been very useful. And same with like Slack and email to some extent. But yeah, I never really had meetings with freelancers, and regardless of the scope that I was working.
Elena, maybe one last question for you. What advice would you give someone who's aspiring to become an important localization team lead like yourself? What are some of the things to pay attention to and make sure that you check off?
I think the crucial one is to develop leadership skills, because people management is the whole new world of responsibilities and a whole new skill set. And you cannot be a great specialist and then a great team lead just right away. You grow into this, and you need time to grow into a good leader and to influence and to lead with empathy, of course. So yeah, leadership skills, the way.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so very much. We've already come to the end of this episode of the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowdon. I thank you so very much for spending some time with us today, and we're going to keep an eye on both of you in the localization space there, and see your careers thrive, I hope. Thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thank you
for having us.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Agile Localization Podcast by Crowdon. We hope you found it as insightful as we did. If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to learn more about how leading companies are managing their multilingual content efficiently, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Thank you for tuning in. For more resources on how to streamline your localization process, visit crowdon.com. See you next time.